All right. Happy Monday, everybody, and Happy New Year. I am coming live to you in the Bogey Free Back and Body group, and wanted to get rolling with some stuff for the new year here. For anybody that might be working on their game in the off season, working on their body in the off season, figuring out what the heck they're going to do this off season. And I figured I'd start with typically it helps a lot to recommend things that people are traditionally or consistently struggling with or missing in the individuals that we work with every day to potentially help guide you on where to start and things to consider if you are thinking about improving your game this off season. Whether you're here in Wisconsin, where you're probably not playing outdoors anyway, or you're in Florida or California, where you might still be playing, but there's always an opportunity to work on this stuff off the course. So I think the overarching theme that I tend to hear from a lot of golfers that are either worried about their bodies or thinking they're having issues with their bodies and it might be affecting their play is flexibility. And so the common thing I'll hear is that I'm losing flexibility, or I can't generate enough turn, or I'm tight in my hips, or my back is tight. And I certainly don't doubt, and the individuals that we work with, I don't doubt that you feel tight and that you feel like you're restricted. But what happens a lot of times when I take the golfers that I'm working with through their screens is, more often than not, I think I tend to be surprised, not as much anymore, but the golfer, the individual themselves, tend to be very surprised about how well they're actually moving, how flexible they are, and how much range of motion they have. And so, yeah, we run into issues here and there, body part by body part, especially if somebody's had an injury or pain in the past. But flexibility typically is actually fairly decent. I would say that when I put people on our K-Vest, which is our 3D swing analysis here, and we look at spinal rotation, and there is a certain norm or a range that we're looking for that golfers should have. 95% of the golfers that I work with actually end up hitting that spinal rotation norm in the 3D golf swing. Now, it might not be efficient about how they get there, and there might be different reasons why they're getting there, which aren't always the best, but rarely am I seeing people that are 20, 30 degrees short of where they should be from a upper body turn or upper body twist to get to the top of their backswing. And that's a small example of a lot of people actually are generating enough movement or have enough available movement to do some of the things that they need to. I won't say all the things. So if it's not flexibility, if it's truly not necessarily always that you're tight or restricted, even though you can feel tight and restricted and not actually be tight and restricted, remember those are two very different things. I'm going to go over the top 3 things that a lot of the golfers that we work with daily actually are struggling with, and I would guesstimate that that's probably very similar with what you might be, if you're listening and watching, what you might be struggling with. Because it's the overarching theme with so many of the golfers that I work with, and doing this long enough now that it's unavoidable, and it's certainly very specific. So here we go. Number 1, the first thing that most golfers that we work with are struggling with is what I'll call using the ground. Okay, so using the ground, we know through the different aspects and mechanics of the golf swing that the only way that you can really generate force in your golf swing is by interacting with the ground very, very well. And what that means is leg strength and ground reaction force. Hey, what's up, Jason? How you doing, buddy? Thanks for hopping on. The interaction with the ground, especially when we go from top or transition to impact, there's a relative amount of reaction with the ground from a force standpoint. We're producing force with the ground that needs to happen for us to generate any sort of club head speed and get through the ball. And so the interaction with the ground and that reaction with the ground, that force production with the ground, it really can only happen if golfers have lower body strength, stability, and power production. And so many of the amateurs that we work with, and then especially the junior golfers as well, their lower body is certainly an area for improvement. And since they can't generate that reaction with the ground that's so necessary, they can't develop the club head speed that they want, and they're losing a lot of energy before the swing has even started. And so that's number one: lower body strength, lower body power, interacting with the ground. There are very simple and straightforward ways to improve that. Oh, that's good to hear, Jason. Glad you're doing well. Happy New Year. And so usually the leg strength first, developing the ability for the muscles to produce force, and then the power is second. A lot of our junior golfers, and now especially a lot of our adult male golfers, we're actually having them jump, doing a lot of jumping work, leaving the ground, generating power by pushing through the ground and leaving the ground. And believe it or not, it doesn't look anything like the golf swing, but that is one way to really improve the lower body strength, lower body power, and interaction with the ground. And that will help start the golf swing, the downswing of the golf swing, far, far more efficiently and productively than any flexibility or mobility drill will. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is maintenance of posture throughout the golf swing. So overall, the goal of any good, efficient golf swing is to maintain your angles and your lines and overall posture as much as you can from takeaway to impact. Typically after impact, we don't really care too much what happens in terms of posture and body angles and whatnot. But from takeaway to the top to impact in the golf swing, we actually want to see as much of your original setup posture maintained as we can. Now, I know that sounds goofy because you're rotating, right? So you're going to obviously be moving and changing position. But if I were to look at somebody from what we call down the line, so they're set up and I'm looking at their target along with them, kind of standing off to the side behind them, we want to see that hinge, that angle at the hips maintained and the spine angle maintained as much as we can as we rotate around those angles. And a lot of people tend to lose those angles. They tend to lose that posture. So our good buddy Marcus, two doors down, will talk a lot about early extension and how that can affect things that happen at the hand and with the release of the club. Well, early extension a lot of times is the same thing as you standing up and losing the flex of the hips, you coming out of posture at the takeaway at the top or back down to impact, losing the shoulder angle or your spine angle. All those things, and we can you can get really nerdy and technical about it, but if you're losing your golf posture at any point from takeaway back down to impact, that is a consistency killer. And so what happens is not only do you potentially lose power output and your power potential, but probably most common and most often thing that we'll see are individuals that really struggle with consistency with their ball striking. Sometimes it's fat, sometimes it's thin. Especially towards later portions of the round, if they're walking as they get fatigued, they start to struggle with consistency. And then as well as from round to round, if 1 week you're feeling like you're hovering around par and then all of a sudden the next week you're 10, 15 over, some of these things are really important in that consistency, and that's the maintenance of posture. So that's number two. A lot of that stuff with maintenance of posture, again, it doesn't have as much to do with flexibility. Now, some of it does in terms of rotation and being able to maintain those angles as we rotate. But a lot of the issues that we see with losing posture in the golf swing are strength in the glutes, in the hips, in the core, and in stability of each leg. And so any deficits in hip strength, core strength, or single leg stability and balance, it's very easy for the body to come out of that posture, okay? And then lastly, number three, so I don't ramble on too long here, number three is the ability to separate your upper half from your lower half. So if you take your body and you cut it in half at the belt line, the belt buckle, many golfers, many amateur golfers and junior golfers really struggle with separating their torso from their pelvis Especially on the takeaway, they have a hard time separating their torso independent from their pelvis. And then at the top, back down to impact, have a hard time starting the golf swing with the lower body and rotating their pelvis, and then having that torso kind of lag behind and join the party later. And so separation of the upper and lower half is, because it's a rotational move, there is some flexibility and mobility needed. But a lot of times, again, individuals struggle with separating their upper and lower half because they don't have the what we call motor control, or they don't have the control over those body segments. So they can't keep one segment stable while the other stable is moving. Again, this might all sound a little bit like a foreign language, but all you need to know is when individuals struggle separating their upper and lower half, what they're really going to struggle with is the sequence of their golf swing. And so when we talk about swing sequencing, especially again from top to impact, if that lower body can't separate from that upper body, or on the takeaway, if your upper body can't separate from your lower body, you're going to have a really hard time sequencing the swing efficiently time after time after time. And what that's going to do, again, is probably the most common side effect is lack of consistency and poor ball striking, or inconsistent ball striking. But you're also going to lose that power again, especially if you're not a bigger individual, or you're not overly mass oriented or strong, or have a lot of muscle mass. Maybe you can't produce as much force because you don't have as much mass. Then that separation is where you're going to get a lot of your snap or your pop. Players like Justin Thomas and Ricky Fowler and some of these guys that aren't all that big, especially you look on the female circuit as well, they're not big individuals. They don't have a lot of mass to produce that force, but they get their acceleration and their snap and their speed from the ability of that upper body to lag behind the lower body and really develop that sequence in the swing. So lack of separation, upper and lower body, is number 3. That's something that's a little bit more difficult. It would be something that would be hard for me to just give somebody in a program over the computer and say, do this. It's something that needs to be cued and given feedback on and really practiced. But many individuals, when we test, really struggle with that. And I'd say that it's not as much of a flexibility, mobility issue as it is just understanding how to keep one spot of your body stable and strong while another body part moves. So those are the 3 top things, all right? There's a lot of things. Trust me, golf's challenging. I know that more than anybody. But the top 3 things recently and consistently that we see, number 1, lack of using the ground, lack of leg strength, lack of lower body power, and that's going to be a distance killer, and it's going to give you massive energy leak before you even get started. Number 2 is the maintenance of your golf posture throughout the swing. So you're setting up in your golf posture, it feels comfortable, it's probably a pretty solid posture overall, and then at some point in your swing from takeaway to impact, you're losing those angles. And then number 3 is separation of the upper and lower half. So being able to generate that sequence in the swing that happens by creating separation from one body segment to another is really important as well for consistency. And if you're not a bigger individual and you still want to hit the ball far, that has to happen. All right. So I hope those make some sense. If you have any questions or comments, certainly leave them below. If you're watching live, certainly appreciate it. If you happen to watch on replay, make sure you type in Team Replay and pop in any questions or thoughts that you might have in regards to this. I'm going to go over, for these top 3 things, I'm going to go over some tricks and tips and tools over the next week. So love to have you continue to join us. Really going to try to get some momentum going in this group and be more consistent for you. And this is a free resource. Feel free to reach out, ask any questions you might have. Coming up in the near future, there's going to be some big benefits from being in this group. Number 1, I will be putting out free guides in this group, including warm-ups, 6-week programs, and distance programs for individuals. And all you need to do is be a part of the group, and it's yours. Number 2, probably a bigger announcement, is I am doing a online bogey-free back and body program, which is going to be 6 weeks, and it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to include one-on-one coaching in a live setting like this over the computer one time a week, and we're going to go over kind of the topic of the week, and then you're going to get an online program to follow along with individually, and that's going to all be app-based, so all you have to do is have the app, and you'll get all of that. You'll also have that program for life for as long as you so choose, so it's going to be a great program that you could replicate each off season. A lot of this stuff does not go stale and get old. And then you're certainly going to have coaching and accountability. I know nowadays more than ever, time is a challenge for people. It's a challenge to get in here, one time a week, nonetheless 2 or 3 times a week. And I also know that cost-wise, it's not always easy for people to do something like this just because they want to or because they feel like they want to improve their golf game. There's other things out there. So doing this live program is really going to make it cost effective for people to get some really good info and go through a program without having to be in here 2 or 3 times a week, and hopefully without breaking the bank as well. So be on the lookout for that. Hoping for a February 1st release of that program. And for being in the group, Bogey Free Back and Body, you're automatically getting a discount on that if you so choose to join the program. So I'll keep getting information out there. Jason says, great info. As always, thanks for your help with Jenna. Yeah, Jason, I appreciate your email that you sent me, and certainly a pleasure working with Jenna. Going to get our next session going soon, and I still owe the kids a program here for the next couple of weeks, which is going to be out. So appreciate it as well. Appreciate your trust, and certainly love working with Jenna. Everybody else, thank you so much. Like I said, pop in the comments if you have any questions or concerns. If you feel like any of this might be in your wheelhouse or an issue for you, or if you feel like it's something else that you're struggling with, happy to answer any questions. We have some great resources in this group as well. I know for sure that Corey Feller is in the group. I think I already saw him engage here tonight. We got Marcus Holtz, and he's 2 doors down from me. He is a fantastic resource as well. There's a lot of these things technically and game improvement wise that I can help you with, but there are a lot of things that I'll be the first to tell you are outside of my scope and over my head, and they should go to individuals like those 2 gentlemen as well. So if nothing else, if you don't have a question for me that I might be able to help you with, feel free to reach out in this group, as I know they're members and they might be able to help you as well. So looking forward to getting more active in here. It's certainly overdue. And happy 2020. Let's get it. Let's get some game improvement this off season, and let's go into April and May. Certainly way, way, way far ahead of where we were last year. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.